Bryan and Shannon, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So I am really excited to have you guys on the show. You probably don't remember this, but I actually met y'all. I think I might have been Shannon first. I don't think I met Bryan years ago. We were in New York City at a Dave Ramsey event, and you were actually running Belay, but it was by a different name back then. It was like EA Assist or something like that. You went through a name change at some point.
EA
Help.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
EA
that
Help.
was the business gets personal, right?
Yes. And it was Dave Ramsey, Seth Godin, and Gary Vaynerchuk, which was a very unique combination of trio people.
That was very
I remember,
interesting.
Interesting is the right word. When you put Gary Vaynerchuk in Dave Ramsey's audience, it's always interesting. But I remember then being so impressed by what y'all had done then, and you've changed a lot since that time period. I want to just recognize today that the reality that a lot of people are going through some serious fear at the moment, especially business owners. We got a lot of uncertainty. We're walking into a little bit of a dark room and we don't know what's in there. Today's not all going to be about the coronavirus and the current crisis, but we are going to talk about leading through crisis and growing a business through all scenarios. I'd love to hear a little bit of y'all's story, because the reality is when you started the business, one of your businesses, you were actually, the country was right in the middle of or starting into the big recession that we had early in 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
So what gave you the courage to make that leap in the first place?
Yeah, it's so funny that we're in this situation now and we have another new business. It's like, is there something big going on here? But yeah, it was 2010 when Bryan and I were working for different organizations. I was in healthcare software and he was in construction. And for different reasons, we were approaching an impasse in our careers, just had capped out on what we thought our potential could be in those organizations. And we always had this desire to have a business of our own. And it was just almost like a balance of faith and courage just to say, yeah, on paper, the timing is terrible because it is in the height of the recession. We have stable jobs, we have health insurance, we've been able to build a retirement. So let's just abandon all that and start a company.
With kids that are 2 and 5.
You know?
Yeah,
but it ended up being the absolute perfect time to start our business because it was all around fractional virtual services. And there were people who needed to work in a new and innovative way. And there were companies who needed to staff in a new and innovative way. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, we weren't smart enough to like fully grasp all that at the time, but it ended up being the absolute perfect time to start the business.
Yeah, it was a time of reflection and like, are we crazy? But what we found, we talked to wildly successful business people during that time or before that time, and they said, this is the perfect time for you to do this. But all of our friends and family that never really owned or ran businesses, they were like, you're terrible. Like, this is the worst idea ever. You're going to hurt your family. Mm-hmm. But we leaned into wise people that were successful in business, and they were all saying, yeah, this is a wise call. This is a perfect time to enter the market. So I say that to anybody that's watching this right now, as we enter a trough economically, whatever this is, whatever you want to call it, it may be the best time to either pivot in your business or start something new, or maybe it's a new service line in your company, or maybe it's a net new organization that's going to help the world in some way or some form. So while it's important that you know where your cash position is and you take care of your family and all the obvious things, it could be a really great time for some new change and some new opportunity too.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I know y'all are friends with somebody who's actually one of my aspirational identities. It's Michael Hyatt. Yeah. And one of the things I love that he said recently is to ask yourself the question, what does this make possible? Yeah. And I think that is just such an interesting thing to look back on, because I know for me, I've just put so much faith in things that maybe are not as important as I thought that they were. It's allowed me to step back and refocus on what really matters. Now, when y'all were starting the business back in the recession then, it was you guys and your young kids, and you were taking a risk. But now we're in a different stage, and now y'all have been in business for over a decade, and you have a very large team, and you have people all over the place. And even recently, you have put a CEO in place at your company, and and there's a lot of people who are scared right now. So when you're talking to both other leaders and then also telling them how they should talk to their teams, I guess the question is, how are you talking to your teams right now in the midst of the fear and unknown that everyone is facing?
I think that right now it's important that owners of companies are not silent. You know, that they're very present in the lives of the leaders that they work, alongside. For example, we have a brewery here in North Atlanta. You know, the guy that's really running that, his name is Joe, and we're like, what can we do to resource you, equip you, help you? Like, what do we need to communicate to the staff? Like, we're here to serve. And the same is true of Trisha, who's the new CEO of Belay as of the beginning of this year. Talk about welcoming her to leadership. And she was our former COO, so great leader.
Yeah, been leading for a long time.
Completely proven, but I mean, now more than ever, she's stepped into it. And I've always felt, and Shannon too, that the cause of leadership is to serve others. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to be really good owners and say, how can we serve you? What do you need? And sometimes that serving them might be, hey, here's what I think you need to do. Here's the things I think that you need to think through from a cash flow position standpoint. We need to start planning backwards and saying, okay, if we do have a downside, what's that look like? And, really getting into the nitty gritty and that serving them well. And then encouraging them, and how they plan to encourage others through this time. I think you never waste a crisis. The other thing too is that we're looking at in both organizations is, how do we come out of this trough and smash on the gas? Like, what are we doing right now that our competitors aren't? What can we do right now to double down on something that we know will create a greater moat for organizations? So it's not only just a retraction, it's also an acceleration. It's both and right now. And that's how we're serving our teams from a leadership standpoint.
And we've encouraged both leaders of our organizations to communicate confidence during this time. Yes, we're taking a hit. We had to shut the tap room down in the brewery. We will reopen. We will take care of our team. With Belay, we're seeing some of our customers fall in really hard times. Yeah. We will serve them. We will resource them. We will work with them. So the confidence that our leaders are communicating to the teams about the ultimate trajectory of our businesses hasn't really changed through this, but they're also acknowledging, we are facing challenges, and here's what we're doing to mitigate our risk. So I think how things are communicated right now are almost as important as what's communicated.
I think one other thing is right now, I've said this really since, we kind of went into this about whatever in the States, at least, back about a week and a half ago, is our job as leaders right now is to extend grace to everybody. Like, for example, yesterday, got an email from a client of ours that frankly just pissed me off. And it was really rude and hurtful. And I was ticked at first, and I reminded myself, no, we're supposed to extend grace. So I wake up this morning feeling entirely different about that person, because what I know is desperate business owners are going to act in a desperate fashion during things like this. So our job is to be better leaders and to say, look, hey, that was, those words were words, but we're here to serve. And I think that, as best we can, we need to extend grace to everybody, not just our teams, inside our homes, everywhere grace needs to abound, because we all need it at some point during this crisis.
Gosh, I have so much I need to unpack from that I thought was really, really helpful. On the grace thing, one of the things I always say to our team is that we need to err on the side of grace. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about what you said about that email from the client is, you were mad at first. And I think it's important to acknowledge that it's normal to have those feelings, and it's completely okay. But the question as a leader is not how do we feel about it, it's how do we respond to it. And I think in your case, sometimes it's just a matter of, I need to sleep on that, and then I'm going to deal with it tomorrow. Because I know in those situations, I try really hard to not respond when I'm really angry. And I acknowledge it's okay to be angry about this, but I probably shouldn't respond in it. I need to wait and think and breathe a little bit. The other thing
Those have been some of my regrets. If I've responded too quickly out of emotion or anger, it's like, dang, if I had just slept on it, it would be entirely different.
That's true of her with me as well.
That's right. And we're going to get to that because I want to talk about the reality of working together, running a company together as a married couple. I think that's really important, and we're definitely going to get to that. But a couple of things I want to unpack from what you just said too, and I wanted to kind of make sure people heard is you one thing I really appreciated was you didn't say that you went to your leaders and told them what to do. What you said was we went to our leaders and said, hey, what do you need? How can we help? How can we resource you? We're here for you. And I think that's really important because at the end of the day, if you've put those people in a place of authority and their job is to lead, they need to do that. And your job is to come alongside them and help support them. And I think we throw this idea of servant leadership out there all the time. Like people say this all the time. And I've been telling people the last week or two, like this moment of crisis is the opportunity where we get to walk that walk. Because you can say it all day long. You can write it in a blog post. You can put it on a podcast. But until the rubber meets the road, which is right now, that's when we find out what that really looks like. So I really appreciate that you said that. And the last thing I wanted to say as it relates to what you were talking about was you mentioned just planning, preparing, not planning.
Yeah.
Right? Those are different things. A lot of people are panicked right now. And I think that idea of going, hey, let's plan. We have to plan for the worst. And we got to plan for what the middle range is and plan for best case scenarios. And that's really important as well. Let's talk about that marriage thing and business. My aunt and uncle have worked together for a long time, so I've kind of seen the behind the scenes on their business. They run a successful business together, and they complement each other really well. I'd love to hear from y'all. First of all, I'm asking a hard question. What is the hardest thing about being married and actually running businesses together?
Just jump in there, Jay. I mean, come on.
I think in the early days when we started, what was really hard was not knowing each other's lanes. And like while we had, lived together for 10 years and been married for 10 years before we started our company, we didn't know how we worked together. We admired and respected kind of our careers, but when we melded those together to start working together, it took a while for us to kind of navigate that and gain clarity around, okay, oh wow, you're really good at that. I suck at this. Or you're really good at this and I'm less so we'll default to you in this. And once you kind of gain clarity on the lanes of the strengths and weaknesses, that really does help. And now today, more than ever, we play to each other's strengths and weaknesses quite well.
I think in that same vein, some of the early challenges of working together were expecting Bryan to handle a situation the way I would, or him expecting me to handle a situation the way that he would, when the reality is not only are we, man and woman, two different people, our personality profiles are always like opposite ends of the spectrum. Yep. Like I'm a high S, high I, he's a high D. I'm an Enneagram 7. Let's have a great time. He's an 8 challenger. I like to avoid conflict.
I love conflict for the right reasons.
Myers-Briggs, total opposite. So recognizing that can actually be a really great thing in a business. It can bring two different perspectives together and approaches together for one ultimate vision for the company, and not trying to make the other person be like you. I think something that has been really nice about working together is, man, if he's had a bad day, I know exactly why. We are so aware of what's going on in our businesses that we have a lot of understanding and grace around, like, yeah, I get why you just want to shut down tonight and veg out and not talk. That's cool. And giving each other the space to do that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, on one hand, I think there can be a lot of challenges to that, but there also are a lot of positives. My wife and I actually have the opposite problem to some extent because she homeschools 5 kids and I run a business with a good sized team. And so we don't sometimes have that same perspective of like, who had the better day, who had the worst day, who needs a little break, and it takes a little longer to figure those things out. But I do think we have started to learn those distinct strengths. I'm a high D, she's a high C. She's actually a high CD. I'm a 3, she's a 1. And so those personalities have a tendency to just totally clash because she wants things done right, and I just want to keep moving forward. But if they're
Fun is
leveraged,
better than perfect.
yeah. But if they're leveraged properly, like y'all are saying, it can really have great power. So for some people out there who maybe don't know all these things we just talked about, as I'm a high D, I'm a number one, I'm this kind of stuff. Personality profiles are obviously an important thing to y'all and something you've used in your own relationship and probably in your teams as well. When did you start using those things? How have those kind of played out for you, and what's been the benefit that you found both in your own relationship and in that of your teams?
We've used personality profiles from the beginning. I mean, one of my majors in college was psychology, a double major in business and psych. So I just have always loved that aspect of integrating like personal understanding and awareness in a business context. So we took Myers-Briggs when we were in college, and also got married when we were in college too, which wouldn't recommend that, but here we are, it worked out. And so then as we started Belay, DISC became very popular. So for a long time, we were using DISC as a hiring tool, even with our contractors. And then Enneagram has now become the popular personality test that, we've taken our teams through. And it's been a really good way to not only get to know each other better as people, because we're all coming, we're all showing up to work in our personalities, but also forming strategies around how you're communicating as a team based on your personality.
Yeah, they've had go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, I think it's important to know for yourself how you show up with others, and I mean, it's great to learn things about yourself through these personality tests, but really the benefit is for you to recognize how you show up with others, in good times and in stress and so forth, and being cognizant of that. I mean, our pastor says something that is so powerful that I've used many, many times is, what's it like to be on the other side of me? It's such a powerful question because you're learning how you're coming across to other people. And personality tests do a great job if they're done well to help you understand like the wake that you're leaving in other people as you drive your boat around.
Yeah, that really is makes me think. I think there's a lot of times where, especially as my personality type, where I come through and leave awake, and it requires me to be very intentional to go, okay, I need to slow down because this high detailed person needs the detail.
That's
and
right.
Quite frankly, I need them because I can't operate without a diverse range of people who have all kinds of different skill sets and abilities. And I think for me, one of the hardest things has been building a team. So I'd love to kind of transition to that a little bit. We haven't really hit on even what Belay does for people who don't know. So maybe just give us a little bit of an overview of kind of what you guys do and how that can help a company maybe leverage and scale in a place where they're not ready to hire full-time employees yet.
Yeah, a lot of business owners have a really hard time finding great people. So Belay offers virtual services in the area of assistants, bookkeepers, and website specialists to take care of the administrative burden of running a business so that the leader can get their time back and start to fall in love with what they've created again. So practically for us, that translates to about 1,100 team members across the United States, serving in the capacity of virtual assistant, bookkeeper, website specialist, and our corporate team provides account management on top of that. So it can be really hard sometimes for leaders to know how to delegate, what to delegate, when to delegate, how to communicate in a virtual setting, how to integrate this new team member into your team. Maybe you're in an office with everybody, but this new person's remote. How do you communicate that they're your new work alongside partner? Things like that. So our Belay team does a great job to be a trusted advisor for those types of things and really help coach and guide our clients so they can be successful.
One asterisk to add to that is that when we started our business back in 2010, unemployment was 9.6%. And we wanted to impact the US economy. We had a lot of people hurting back then that needed jobs. And so all of our folks are US based. They're all within the 50 states. Yep. And that is true today as well. So while our headquarters in terms of it being all virtual. We don't have an office. We've never had an office. All 1,100 of us work from home. We're all in the United States because we want to impact the U.S. economy.
So one thing I want to point out to everybody who's listening or watching who may not have picked up on this, one of the things that I loved, Shannon, as you started to describe your business was how you described it. And this is a great communication lesson for everyone else, is that you started with what is the problem that everyone else is experiencing. The problem, which I can repeat because you made it so clear, is that finding the right people is really hard. And hiring the right people is really hard, something like that. And so you're pressing in on what that is. And for everybody out there who's talking about your business, what they could have done is said, well, we've been in business since X, Y, or Z, and we do this and this and this. But instead, what you did was focus on what your client needs and wants and what their problem is and how you help them overcome it.
We're students of the Storybrand model. If you couldn't pick up on that, we totally believe in what Don and his team have created in Storybrand, because it's very powerful. And if anybody listening to this is not familiar with what they've created, look into it. It will revolutionize your marketing and your communication for your organization, so that you are not the hero. You are the guide. Your customer is the hero.
And to that point with Belay, it was, we thought of the word Belay well before kind of the Storybrand thing came online. But for us, we've always felt that. So Belay, if you're not familiar, is a rock climbing term. And it's just simply, we're in a position of serving our climbers, our clients, as they climb higher. That's the job of the person on Belay, is to basically protect them and mitigate their risk by making sure that if they fall while they're trying to ascend, we got them on the rope. And that's our job, is to be a support to others and do it at weapons grade.
So what's interesting about this is if you think about where the economy was at that high unemployment rate, which we may end up being back there in a very short order here, depending on how things shake out, is that you're providing a service both to the assistants who could join your team because they need an opportunity, and you're creating an opportunity for a business owner or an executive to expand their team without maybe the cost, risk, and complications of actually bringing in new full-time employees. And you're taking a lot of that work off of their plate for them. I think, for a long time, I was under the false impression of things like, well, there's nobody else that can handle my email because it's my email. There's nobody else who can manage my calendar because I'm pretty good at technology. And I've had to learn those lessons. So do you deal with those kind of objections from people who are like, I can't have somebody look at my email. How's that going to work?
Yeah, we've got ego is a funny thing. And we have a good friend of ours that has a statement, and we use it a lot. He says that ego is dilutive to net worth. And I believe that with all my heart. And I've seen it many, many, many times, is when you think that you're the only one that can do anything, you are hurting yourself.
You're capping your leadership.
You are putting a lid on your leadership for sure by doing that. So we see that a lot. The truth is, anybody can do your job. You are replaceable. You're in this for a season at a time. You're a steward of what you're responsible for. And that's true of even us as owners of our businesses. We are stewarding this thing for a season at a time. And so when you really, really think about that long enough, you go, yeah, I hate to admit it, but Bryan and Shannon are right. We're not going to be here forever. And so it's important then that you take ego and just kind of park it and say, okay, anybody can do this. And wow, there's a company that actually has awesome people that can do it better than me.
Yeah. And just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. It doesn't mean that it's the best and highest use of your time. And I think until you have somebody that you really can rely on, that you can envision turning those things over to, it doesn't happen overnight. You don't just huck your email over the fence and say, good luck. It is a process that you follow.
Yeah.
But once you start to validate, oh, I gave up this little thing. Now I can envision giving up more. Now I can envision giving up more. It's almost like a shift in your mindset that takes place.
One of the more fun things I get to do is help people realize something about themselves in terms of delegation. And not too long ago, I was talking to a guy that made about $2 million last year. And I said, hey, take that number and divide that by 2,080, which is about the hours of a full-time worker. And he did that, and he looked at his number, and I said, so would you pay somebody that amount per hour to book your travel? And he goes, I get it. Like, there's things that leaders need to be doing that only they can do, and then so much of these other lower payoff activities could be delegated to somebody else. So it's a really simple way of doing it. Just take whatever you made last year, divide it by 2,080, and then ask yourself, would you be paying somebody to do that?
Those are powerful questions. Those are powerful questions. I think it really kind of runs counterculture to the idea if you want to get something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Totally.
Yeah,
That's just a lie. It's not true.
ego. Yeah,
it is, and I will be the first to admit that I have failed to that plenty of times, and I still do some days. But what I've learned over time too is one of the big things for me is, my job is to ultimately create an environment. And this is a weird thing to say, but I really do believe it, is to create an environment where my team has the opportunity to fail, but maybe not catastrophically.
Sure.
And make that okay, because I know that over the years, one of the best ways I learned was first and foremost from other people, but second from doing the work and going, that didn't work. Let's not do that again. Let's do this. And I think so many times, especially small business owners can feel like they need to protect their team from making any kind of errors whatsoever. But how are they going to learn if you don't give them the same opportunity that you had when you started the thing?
That's right. One footnote to all of this, especially in this season right now, is that there are certain leaders that I have friends, we have friends that they just got to cut their lawn themselves. Like, it gives them like freedom and release, and they, if they did the same thing and they realized per hour how much it costs for them to mow their lawn, they'd stroke out. But the truth is, right now, there's an opportunity for things like that to occur, and it gives release to people, and especially in stressful times. But what we found over the course of a decade of doing this is a lot of leaders hang on to those lower payoff activities, those things that others could be doing, simply because they don't get a sense of completion otherwise in their everyday life. And so for them, if they can do that one thing that takes 15 minutes and they check it off their list, they're feeding something in them that feels good. It's a dopamine hit, and they go, oh, I completed something. Because most of the stuff leaders like you and I are solving right now are 9, 6, 12, 18 months. They're just way out. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get that sense of completion, and you have to learn how to trick yourself into thinking, okay, well, this is better used and better served by having somebody else do it in your organization. But the footnote to all that is, right now, I think if someone needs a release and they just love mowing their lawn, or booking their own, well, no one's flying right now anywhere.
That's right.
Whatever that might be for you.
I think that idea that ego dilutes your net worth is really powerful, and it's something that people need to rest on, even in this season, because asking that question, what is the thing that I really need to get done today that only I can do? Because there, especially in crisis, there are things that only leaders can do that they have to do, and if they don't do those things, they're going to be in big trouble. So let's talk about that just briefly. And gosh, we're already running out of time, so we're going to have to transition towards our close. But I want to hit on this: best and highest use of a leader, especially in cases of crisis, which we're in right now. What do you guys see those being? Where do you see yourself in that? Where should other leaders be focused right now when they go, hey, how can I take care of my company and my team as we go through what will be a pretty big speed bump here?
I think it goes back to what we said earlier. It's, as a leader, we're to serve others. And so that means going to your team, your leadership team, your management team, whatever that looks like, and saying, okay, how can I serve you? Yes, we're going to be down in this particular area of the business. Can we shift resources or teammates to this side of the business that might be busy right now? It's happening in Belay. What are the resources you think you're going to need, and what planning have you done that you can tell me about so that I can help think it through critically with you? So it's really kind of being hands open and serving in a posture of like, listen, I'm here for you. And that needs to extend itself all the way through the organization, not just, at the very top of the organization. So servant leadership and pushing on that's important. I think another one is this, like Shannon said, being a calm, be a calming force right now. Yes, this sucks. Yes, this is hard. We will get through this. A lot of people are reacting emotionally, and the cause of leadership is to create stability. Even when, bombs are raining down on you, you still got to get in the foxhole and fight. And so the leaders right now, and so that's something that I think is wise to push through the organization as a sense of calm, because we will see our way through this.
You know, a lot of people have asked us, you know, you, Bryan and Shannon, you just transitioned out of the role of CEO at Belay 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Are you back in it now? Did you jump back in? We're like, absolutely not. You know, Trisha is in the role of CEO for a reason, and it was not a short-term play.
That's right.
So now is the time for us to take opportunities like this, to talk to you, to take media opportunities, to do a webinar with entrepreneur, like the externally facing things that the market needs to hear right now about working remote and, you know, leading through crisis. But the running of Belay, the day-to-day, you know, how do we pivot? What do we need to adjust? How do we rework our budget? That's Trisha's role as a leader. And we want to use this time to elevate her even more and say, she's got this. And so I think if you've got, you know, somebody on your team who you want to be a leader emerging through this, this is as good a time as any to elevate them, to, like you said earlier, give them a chance to fail. We're going to have a lot of failures during this season and beyond, but it doesn't mean that we don't try. And in really leveraging the people that you have on your team and growing them during this time and making sure that they're elevated.
I think one of the things is the fun conversation of, okay, what opportunity does this provide us? What's possible? You know, where can we step on the gas in our business? Where can we create the bigger moat around our competition? Like, those are all fun conversations. And if you've been cash wise, you know, before this all happened, then you can be in a position to step on the gas. And we're doing that internally in our company right now. There's certain areas where, like, go, like, now more than ever, we need to do this. And so that can be a fun conversation in the midst of some hard times too, and encouraging where you can, if possible, do that with your leadership, is to say, okay, what does this create that's an opportunity for us, you know, in our future?
Yeah, I just to that point, and maybe this isn't even new material, but it seemed like it was when I went to your Belay website. I noticed there was a bunch of stuff focused on helping other people with remote work.
That's right.
And I actually even shared a link to one of the, you had a great page, you had a bunch of resources on there, and I'll share that in the comments and chats and show notes and wherever else this thing ends up afterward. But I actually put that this morning in an Entree Leadership All Access group. Somebody was asking about where there were some resources from remote.
Oh, thank you.
Great idea.
And that's a great example, though, of putting the foot on the pedal, because somebody had to create all those resources. Somebody had to design, somebody had to think them up, somebody had to put them in copy, somebody had to design them, somebody had to put them on a page that looked accessible, somebody had to, you know, provide a place for people to download them and then share them. That's a lot of stuff that has to happen behind the scenes. And you've used this analogy a couple of times, and I've used this internally a lot. You talk about pressing on the gas in the right areas. And I read this little clip, and I think it came out of a Harvard Business Review article, and it was talking about businesses coming out of a recession. And they used the analogy of a race car. And they basically said on a racetrack, when curves come up, drivers do one of two things. They brake too hard, and then they can't catch back up again because they've slammed on the brakes. They just accelerate wildly without really any real intention or plan, and they end up crashing their cars. Or the smart businesses and the smart drivers tap the brakes a little bit, get an awareness of what's going on, get the right angle on the turn, and then prepare to accelerate out of the turn. And I'm really encouraged by a couple things with y'all: your calmness, your ability to focus on the things that you actually believe, and then do those things. This is the season. I keep telling people, like entrepreneurs, leaders, if that is who you are, this is your time.
That's right.
These moments are the chances that we get to lift other people up and serve well and actually do the things that we say we believe. And we also find out the ones that don't. This is actually a positive example. I saw a video last night. You guys should look this up if you haven't seen it. It's exceptional. The CEO of Marriott put out a video. You talk about a company that's getting beat up right now.
Yeah, really.
They've lost 60% of their stock value in the last 2 weeks. And this is like a 5-minute video, and at about 4 minutes and 30 seconds, this guy who's the CEO of one of the largest companies in the world looks like he's about to start crying. I mean, he kind of chokes up as he's talking about caring for his team. And I was like, and I actually kind of got a little agitated myself because I kind of got choked up at our Monday morning meeting because I showed more emotion than I really intended to. But it made him so real. And it made it so obvious that he legitimately cares about the people at all levels of his company. And it takes this picture off of this evil CEO guy who's up here trying to like run from the ivory tower. And he's going, I'm not taking a salary for the rest of the year, and I'm going to find a way to take care of our teams.
Yeah.
Wow. Like that's walking the walk. That's what leadership looks like.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really easy to, I mean, we've seen this too. It's really easy to like focus on the success and the highlight reel of business ownership, right? And people see you maybe traveling somewhere on social or whatever those things are. Rarely do they remind themselves of times like this as business ownership when it sucks. It's very hard. And you're supposed to be helping everybody, and you're literally fueling cash into a business to make sure people still have their jobs and their benefits and all that. So it's you know, it's a good reminder that we're all human, regardless of where we kind of sit in an organization, that we're all in this together, and there's not some evil corporate layer of people just, you know, sitting back and hanging out by a pool. Like it's hands on deck for everybody throughout the organization. And I think it's important that, you know, especially frontline employees really realize that.
Yeah, and like the reason we can continue paying our brewery staff that's brand new through the end of April is because we had profit. And we, you know, like profit is a good thing. It actually helps people. So you're right. I think you're 100% right. This is the time for leaders to show really what they're made of and walk the talk. Like the values on the back of your wall right there.
Yeah.
I bet you guys are living them out now more than ever.
Yeah, I just love this stuff. I want to respect y'all's time, but I do have one last question that I want to hit on,
Sure.
and then I'm going to ask you to kind of let us know where the best place for people to find you guys and more information about you. But the last question, I always like to ask this because it matters a lot to me. I believe that there's more to life than just work. I love work. I could work all the time, but also I have 5 kids that I care and love about, and a wife who I want to remain married to until the day that I die. And everybody's version of this is a little bit different. So I always ask, what does the term work-life balance even mean to you? I think it means something different to everybody. And how has that changed through different seasons of your life?
I think for me, it means feeling fulfilled and complete in both aspects of your life. So feeling like you're able to be present and give 100% to your family, and feeling like you're being effective and giving 100% at work. Those, just like you said earlier, there are seasons for everything. So there are seasons when that's going to look different for your family needs you more. You know, we've had to be very available for our kids right now because it's a scary time. But then there are times when you're launching something new or the business is really demanding or you're having to make some really tough decisions that you're going to be pulled more in that direction. So it's constantly checking in and seeing where I'm feeling like I'm fulfilling both really well.
I think for me, it's just that especially in the last decade, both of those, like work and life, are just very integrated. You know, like it's very fluid. There's not a hard stop in there at all for me personally, and I know that that's likely true for her too. Yeah. But I think, you know, one of the things that people need to know about the two of us and why we do what we do, while it's great to have great companies and have awesome people that are in it that serve clients, and we do cool things in the world and helping others in different capacities, those are awesome. But our hope is for our family. Like, we're aiming at something that's way beyond business. Mm-hmm. We're aiming at something in our 70s and 80s. That's a vision we have of having a really healthy marriage, and we can be on the beach, and we have the financial means, and our adult kids are well adjusted and they love each other and they like each other, and we all want to be around each other. I mean, that's really what we're aiming at. Mm-hmm. So businesses help prop that up and that vision for us personally. But, you know, that is what fuels kind of how I operate day to day, is that long-term vision for the two of us and for our family.
Yeah, I get chill bumps just even hearing that vision, because I think that that is something that has been such a powerful tool for me, is what does that future state look like, especially in marriage more than anything, really, because marriage can be hard too. And that's a whole nother podcast, but is that knowing what is the outcome? Because I want to be walking down the beach holding the hand of the same woman when I'm 70, because that is a rare gem.
Yeah.
And I want to have kids who want to come home or want to have us hang out or want to come drop their grandkids off and
Right.
let us give them a break, because we know what it's like to have young kids. And I think that idea for people, right, especially in this season, this is a good time right now when people are at home and maybe there is a little bit more chaos. Maybe there's some things you can't do that you plan to do, some travel. Maybe it's a time to sit aside, with your spouse, sit aside with your business partners and go, hey, what is that vision? What do we really want? What is this make possible?
Yeah.
So closing thoughts, as you speak into the lives of other business owners who want to build a business that lasts, what would you kind of leave with them today, number one? And number two, if they want to find out more about Belay and you guys and what you do, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, I think the big thing that leaders need to think through right now, and acknowledge more than anything else, is that you're here for a season of time, that your leadership is a stewardship, and that you're responsible for those right now in a way that they need you to be there for them. And that's to extend grace, to give trust, to be a calming force, to help them think critically, to be in a support role to them. And I think that is the cause of stewardship. That is the cause of leadership. And those two are combined right now more than ever before.
Well said. I'm not good. So if y'all want to find out more about Belay, you can go to belaysolutions.com. Bryan and I, at the beginning of this year, just launched an organization called Own Not Run, where we've started to create resources to help business owners. We're changing the direction of that temporarily in light of the current economy, but our heart is for the business owner and helping people experience freedom in their business. So once things calm down and the dust settles from all of this insanity, we will boot that back up again. But there are already some good resources out there at ownnotrun.com.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Your calmness and wisdom and leadership has been encouraging to me, and I think it will be to many others. Bryan and Shannon, I really am thankful for your time today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
It's good to see you.
Hey, I hope this video has helped you with some tips and ideas to build a business that lasts. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on the next videos that we roll out. And more importantly, for some awesome free resources, head over to our website at buildingabusinessthatlasts.com. You can get a free copy of my book there, where I tell you how I have built an agency that's grown year over year for the last 20 years in a row. So go grab that, buildingabusinessthatlasts.com, and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Thanks. We'll see you soon.